Or when I had breast cancer, my husband said, she treated it like it was a hangnail. He did it day surgery. Came home that night.
Okay. All right, I think we're ready to go. First thing is approval of minutes of December 5th, 2017.
I make a motion, we approve the minutes of December 5th.
I second that motion.
Okay, any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Next is additions to the agenda. I have 4. One is bridge updates with Roger Kane. Second is a update of from the council governance meeting. Third is Frontier Communications, telephone poles, and fourth is installation at West Cornwall Firehouse. Are there any other additions to the agenda? Make a motion we add all those 4.
Second.
Second.
With the understanding the bridge update with Roger, we can put in that as number 3 after Nick and Kate Freigang, just so that he doesn't sit through everything else we are doing, unless he wants to. Okay, any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
See, next communications. I'd just like to thank the local churches, the Connecticut State Police, Troop B, and members of the community for a large outpouring of gifts for families in town. Basically, it filled up the town hall with the other room with gifts for families, and Jane Sellery, our social worker, has been working all week with some volunteers to bag them, wrap them, and distribute them to people that could use them. So it's been a very nice outpouring of things that are appropriate for this time of year and throughout the year. So just wanted to put that out there to thank everybody that's been doing that. Any other communications? Any public comments? Next we have our friend Nick Pohl from the Houstonic Youth Service Bureau is visiting us.
Yes.
Yes. Telling us about their good work.
Yeah, well, I'll do this as briefly as I can, and it's going to be a little wonky.
Thank you.
Because I do have a brief slide presentation that I wanted to. I didn't know how many to.
Okay.
So I have one extra of some of these.
Yeah, we can get that out to the press if that helps amplify your report.
Sure. I wanted to just do a quick report. I'm going to every town, the select board, just to really express our gratitude as an organization for your years of support. That's why our first slide says thanks to you, because we've been around since 1991. And our mission wouldn't be possible without the support of every town. We've been there since the start, so thank you. And also, a couple of years ago, we approached each town for special funding that was part of a big project we were doing that was renovating a new space and expanding program and services for your community. So I also wanted to come back and kind of revisit that now that that campaign has been completed, and just kind of show you where your investment has gone to help the families of your community. So as I said, we've been in the northwest corner, based in Falls Village, since 1991. I am the second executive director since its founding director, Cynthia Bianchi, founded it with some great community members, one of whom is here today. Ruth. Thank you, Ruth, for your founding support as well. But our mission statement is to create empowering experiences and supportive environment in which children and young adults can embrace their full potential as individuals, as students, as family members, and as community members. What I really like about this mission statement is that how it starts at the individual and really branches out to families and then communities. So I want to talk very briefly on the next slide, just kind of go through 1 through 5, talk about our programs, our services, talk a little bit about impact, some events that we do, and some of the financials that you all may be interested in. But to go very briefly through some of our programs, if you want to flip to the first page, we have our Empowering Young Women program. That's a program that we do with regional high school students at HVRHS, and every year we get a cohort of young women who we work with, and the group of women decide the topics to talk about that year, and we do it in conjunction with Women's Support Services. So topics range the gamut. You know, sometimes we have speakers come in, sometimes it's more social skill type development, others it's very content driven about issues that are very pertinent to young people today. Our next program is our Youth and Philanthropy program. It's an interesting program that we do at the high school, and we do in collaboration with the Northwest Connecticut Community Foundation. Really, this program has 3 components. It has a component for identifying community need, fundraising, and grant making. And so every year we start with gathering a cohort of students, and we sit around, have a conversation about them, and listen to these young people and tell us what needs in the community do they see. And that could run the spectrum. A couple of years ago we had a group of students that wanted to address prescription drug use in the community. So once they identify the community need, they host a small fundraiser. They're tasked with raising $500. What's kind of neat about this, and this is the third component, is the grant making component. So that's where the foundation comes in. The foundation has a $2,500 grant that the group will direct the foundation or make a recommendation to the foundation of where that money is going to go. It's matched with their $500, so it's $3,000 total that goes to an organization that addresses the community need that they identified. So this group a couple of years ago identified prescription drug abuse that they were seeing among peers as the issue that they wanted to address. So their $3,000 grant went to McCall Center for Behavioral Health in Torrington to do some programming at the high school. So that's how that program works. The next program we have, and if you have any questions at any point, I'm happy to answer, is our summer internship project. This is a program that we started a couple of years ago. Just limited summer opportunities for young people in the area, and we wanted to see if we could do something about that. We also were thinking about ways in which we could plug young people into the community in kind of unique and innovative ways. So this program works regionally, where students sign up for our program. We start working with them in about February. There's a bunch of different modules that we do around resume writing, workplace communication, how to dress in a job, kind of like professional development skill type workshops that we do. And then students are placed for a 120-hour internship at nonprofits in the area. And what we try to do is align the interest and potential career interest of the young person with the internship site. So if we have a student interested in animals, we might look to Little Guild or Audubon, something like that. And both of those have been partnering sites for us. So the next program that we have, I'm going to talk about quickly, is our Juvenile Review Board. This is a new program. This is an interesting program. It works closely with 2 different entities, the Connecticut State Police, and then also the juvenile justice system and juvenile court in Torrington. This is a court diversion program. So what happens is for young people 18 and under who have a first-time offense, a misdemeanor, the intervening officer has the opportunity to refer this child and family to this intervention rather than going to juvenile court. So we've seen cases for minor possession of drug abuse. We've seen cases about fighting. We've seen underage drinking cases, things like that. And then this panel, this Juvenile Review Board, it's an sort of interdisciplinary team. There's people from the high school on it. There's clergy on it. We sit on it. There's someone from the state police that sits on it, and there's somebody from the Torrington juvenile justice system that sits on it as well. We work with the family, we work with the young person, and we provide case management services to the young person and family and act as their advocate through the process. And then there are recommendations that the board gives the family and gives the young person to that they have to satisfy. Usually cases are 3 to 6 months, and we continuously meet with the family once a month for that period, just to make sure that everything, all of the recommendations that we had given are being followed through. It's a great tool for us too to also get involved with families who may not be involved in our system or services already. So it's just another lever, I think, for our state police to use, because right now basically they have two options of giving a stern talking to a young person, or going to the full route of going to the juvenile justice system. This is a bit of a middle road option, and it's also just another great way for our services to be introduced into a family. And it could be community service, it could be mandated counseling, it could be drug and alcohol service programming, it could be anything like that. And then the families need to comply, and if they don't comply, then the referral goes to juvenile court. What do we have? So, next, just this a bit of more of an overview, just kind of on prevention. Prevention is something that we're obviously very invested in as an organization, and in a way, I think everything that we do has a prevention function to it, from our clinical services to our juvenile review board, our enrichment programming. All of that really does have a prevention element to it. But more specifically, we sit on the Northwest Corner Prevention Network. We actually helped get that started a number of years ago, which is still functioning. We meet the second Tuesday of every month. And that's an entity that meets on a monthly basis. We have some funding to do some initiatives. We do drug take-back initiatives. We do some awareness initiatives, positive social events. And we meet the second Tuesday of every month, and we really talk about prevention strategies for the community, which is a great platform for that to happen, and one of only a very few platforms where that's happening on a consistent basis. So that's the Prevention Network. We do a developmental asset survey every couple of years alongside the Prevention Network, and we work to measure various things in young people in the community. We've done a life skills curriculum at the elementary schools that is targeted for life skill development, and it's an evidence-based intervention specifically for prevention of drugs and alcohol. And we also do a peers educating peers curriculum at the elementary schools that has a prevention element to it. So prevention is something we are constantly focused on. In terms of the next slide, our services, this is really the core of what we do. It's our student assistance program. Basically that means that's our counseling program. And really what it's two things. It's our counseling program, and it's also a case management piece that we provide. Many families that we're working with, we're the only outside service provider working with the family. So with the direct intervention of the counseling, oftentimes a case management piece is also provided, and that case management could be anything from getting support to getting to medical appointments. It could be getting support for food, or around the holidays we're providing a lot of case management services around that. So it really could be anything. The program really works to address three main barriers to access in our area, which is cost of services. All of our services are free. Limited number of service providers. We have 2 licensed clinicians on staff at the Bureau, and transportation. Our clinicians actually go into the community. They meet and work with students, and will meet families sometimes at schools, but particularly working with the students at their elementary schools. So we work with all the 6 elementary schools and the high school.
I just wanted to know what those initials were under the licensed clinicians, LMFT and LPC?
Licensed Marriage and Family Therapist is the LMFT, and Licensed Professional Counselor is the LPC.
Thank you.
Yeah. There's a lot of different degrees that are starting to pop up in the counseling field. Those just happen to be 2 of them. Yeah. The next slide gives you a sense of the volume of we're working with, and on the right-hand side you'll see sort of like a unfortunate laundry list of various challenges that we've faced with young people and families, certainly since my time. I've been there. Some very complex cases, very challenging situations that we work with on a daily basis. But it gives you an idea of how each of those two graphs, the top one is the hours. It looks at 2 academic years side by side, and it shows you the progression of the service and how it's being utilized throughout the academic year. And then the one below that is the referrals. And what I think is interesting in that is, if you look at the light gray line, the dark gray line on the bottom graph, you see a bit of a gap there as the year progresses. But if you look at the graph above, that gap is not as wide. And I think what that means and what that illustrates is that it doesn't necessarily, although number of families and referrals is an important number, it's not the entire picture, because with that list you see on the right-hand side, many of these families come with very complex situations. So even a small minority of families, they could be absorbing an enormous amount of resources and services and hours just because the intensity of the cases.
This is for the current, last year, September to June of last year.
Which was
Yeah.
which year?
So the dark line is the 2016-2017 academic year, and then the light gray line is the 2015-2016 academic year.
And my question would be, in addition to that answer, thank you, would it be similar that each September it sort of starts off lower, or relatively low, because people are just getting back on track?
Yeah, and that's a good point. That's just how we do our tracking. We don't necessarily make it consecutive from like a rolling basis. We kind of do it by academic year. Our services are year round, so we're there during the summer. We're working with families during the summer, but you will see a decrease in this program during the summer. It does go down, and then but at the start at September, we kind of, for our like tracking purposes, we start fresh and like kind of at a 0 baseline, just so we can get an accurate measurement of how many we're seeing that year. But generally, there's a couple cases we usually carry over through the summer and into the next academic year. So everything that you're seeing there is starting from a baseline of zero, you know, even though there may be a couple kids on our caseload already, we're just measuring it from a baseline of 0 to give us an accurate picture of how many referrals are coming in and how much is being generated out of that program in terms of hours. This next slide is interesting just because it has a picture of our physical space, which each town provided generous funding for, including Cornwall, to help construct. So again, thank you. And that space is being utilized in really interesting ways. One of those ways is we're hosting professional development for clinicians in the area. There are a number of private practicing clinicians in the area, and we've noticed in terms of our professional staff, in order to access trainings, we are traveling out of the area and sometimes far out of the area to access trainings. So we thought, well, why don't we utilize this great space that we have in bringing in and attracting trainers to help build professional capacity of local clinicians in the area. So we developed a relationship with Austin Riggs Psychiatric Hospital up in Stockbridge, which is a very well-known psychiatric hospital in the country. And they had last spring, some of their doctors partner with us and do a series of trainings for us that were well attended. And this moves on to our events. Events are something that we do in the area every year that are just kind of fun. We have our Battle of Bands event. We have our Bearcat 5K. These are kind of awareness events for kids, events for families. This 5K was new. We used to do it at Hotchkiss. Now we're doing it as part of the Fall Festival in Salisbury. And we start and end at the ski jump, so it was a lot of fun. Then the next slide, which I think people on select boards are particularly interested in, is when I think of like kind of that earlier slide about the graphs and what we produce on any given year, I think to try and break it down almost into monetary terms of like, okay, I like to think of like, okay, what are we actually producing in the community? Like in terms of like, what's our good, I guess, that we're producing in the community? If we can really get it down to a monetary value. So this is not an exact, number value, but it gives you an idea of how much is being produced through our counseling and case management services. So for, I think it was the 2016-2017 academic year, we did 577 counseling hours. We did an informal survey just on how much it would cost for a family to go access private services in the area, and we found a range of about $75 to $125. So we took the median number there, $100 an hour. So that's where, and we multiplied it by the 577 hours that we provided to get that number. And the rule of thumb with the case management is for every 1 hour of clinical in-session time is 1 hour of out-of-session time. And that could be phone calls, it could be note making, whatever. And we pay our clinicians about $25 an hour. If I can look over your shoulder. Yep. Thanks. So then we did the 577 hours of case management by $25 an hour, which got us that 14,000 number. And then that year, we did about 400 programmatic hours, again, at that clinical hourly rate of what we actually pay our clinicians, $25 an hour, which comes to another 10,000. So in one way to look at what our services are, more of a like concrete, more dollar terms, we produced about $82,000 of free services into the community. And in total, what we get from funding from the towns is about $47,000, which is great. So I guess my point in this slide is that, we really do, every piece of funding that really comes from each town goes right back into the community in terms of free services being accessed by families. Okay? The next slide is the two pie graphs, and that's our financial picture. On the income side, we're about a $350,000 organization, and you can see how much of that comes from our fundraising activities. So about close to 60% comes from our fundraising. We do get some funding from the State Department of Ed. We have seen a cut to that, so that's about 9% of our funding. I think it's been cut a little bit more actually. I got an email today about it. Our town funding makes up 15% of our budget, and then grants and foundation makes up about another 20%. And on the expense side, again, we have 2 licensed clinicians on staff that are providing services every day to students in Region 1. So most of our funding, the big portion of it goes right to program. And a lot of that program is just in having 2 full-time cleanicians accessible by the region. And then the last slide is just a couple quick testimonials, and that's it. And hopefully I didn't take too much time, and I tried to get through that as quickly as I can. But I'm happy to answer any questions or not. But again, thank you for your support.
Thank you, Nick. And maybe you can just summarize what new challenges are you seeing as a youth service provider? I mean, as far as challenges, the things change over time. Not necessarily just financial things, but what social issues are out there that are
I think social issues have been staying pretty static. I mean, I think we're challenged. Like a lot of that that laundry list that I had there. A lot of those. We see a lot of that stuff every year.
Right.
So I think that stays pretty static. What I am seeing, for whatever reason, maybe it's just because people are getting more familiar with our organization, our volume seems to be up this year. There just seems to be a lot more parents calling the organization. It seems it's a pretty busy year for us this year. So it just seems like the volume of what we're seeing is higher. But in terms of like the challenges that we see, I mean, it kind of runs that gamut. Yeah, but I wouldn't say there's any like major red flag out there that we've, I think a lot of similar challenges that we've been working on for the past number of years, I would say. Right. But it just does seem like, for whatever reason this year, maybe that's just because people are becoming more comfortable calling us or accessing us, we do seem really busy this
Right, yeah, we've seen an increase in social service caseload too, but I think also the fact that you're able to provide all these excellent services for no cost
Yeah,
is a huge
and we
benefit.
work with the town social workers,
Yeah.
and they know that we're here as a resource and can help, augment, the services that the town are able to provide. So really, yeah, any like really social, emotional, mental health, concerns, that's where I think we can really play a key role.
Great, all right, thank you. Any other questions? Well, thanks for coming.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you very
Yeah.
much.
Great. So next we have Kate Fragang to talk to us about Sustainable Connecticut, a new program.
Sure. Let me just make sure that I have what you need here. Can I sit and give this
Absolutely.
presentation?
Yep.
Can I sit sort
You
of
can
around
sit-
the table
You want
with
to
you?
sit right here?
Yeah,
You can sit
that's
there
what I like.
so you get into the camera.
Yeah. Oh, that's
If that's-
definitely
that-
what I'm
that's-
trying to do. I
Oh,
want
good.
my close-up.
Zoom in.
Alright. Let's see if I've done this right. I was trying to avoid.
Thank you.
I was trying to avoid handing out papers by doing this, but maybe that wasn't the smartest idea.
Here.
So, did you get, you need one more for, yeah. It's the third set. Okay, does everybody have a vision on the top? Anyway, I may have, all right. So, I'm here to let you know about a new program in the state called Sustainable CT. And this is the folder that they're handing out with an invitation card, which you will, and I highlighted our local information session that they're going to be going around the state to tell everybody about this. Now, as you know, sustainability is an effort to create a culture of balancing natural resource conservation. And also it's evolved into a program for developing resilience in the state as well, which of course is the idea of being able to come back to balance in cases of storms and things like that. So this has been developed at the Eastern Connecticut, at the Sustainability Center in Eastern Connecticut State University. It is a, there's a history to this, which I've been participating in for about a decade. As you know, 10 years ago, there was an energy plan in action that was supported by the Energy Efficiency Fund and the Green Bank. Energy Efficiency Fund was in charge of conservation, and the Green Bank was in charge of developing financial tools. That original strategy has been gradually eroded, and most recently, you may have heard that the fund was raided, and to the point that the Energy Efficiency Fund has lost 50% of their job, no, 30% of their jobs, and the Green Bank, no, sorry, Energy Efficiency Fund is 50% and the Green Bank has lost 30% to date. So this is not necessarily over with. Meanwhile, in that system, the Energy Task Force people were charged to fill a gap, which meant that they were to be the liaisons with the communities to tell them about these products and these techniques that these two entities were promoting. Those programs will still be in place, but the good thing about this sustainability CT program is that it encompasses not only those mandates, but also broader ones. For instance, when the Energy Efficiency Fund was put with the utilities, it started to corner us into just electricity conservation. Whereas this program is really looking at a much broader view of what it is to develop a culture of sustainability and resilience. And by the way, it's being funded by three wonderful entities: the Emily Hall Tremaine Foundation, the Common Sense Fund, and the Hampshire Foundation. So it's a whole different financial system for developing a state program. Okay, so what is it to have a sustainable culture? I ask you to look at the sustainable CT categories. These are the categories that they have focused on, and there were task forces or committees assembled under each of these categories to develop actions that would be effective. And I actually served on the they've changed the name of it a little bit, but it was the Vibrant and Creative Cultural Ecosystems category. And Joanne in the COG served on another committee, and we've had, I guess, about 5 or 6 from our COG, towns of our COG, participate in developing this program. This is all on a website, of course. It's sustainablect.org. And the next thing is that I actually broke down the website so you could see some of the actions under each of these categories. And you'll see things that you think we've already done. But the idea is to look at those things in light of resilience and what is the collective wisdom as to how to handle that issue in Connecticut. For instance, I mean, you could take anything like mapping tourism and cultural assets. How are other towns doing that? And what is making it effective? How is it helping their economies, for instance, that particular action? What happens when you look at this is it really envelops all of the aspects of a town. So it's a little bit, it sort of adjusts everybody just a little bit towards going towards resilience. They have, on that card I gave you, they have a step-by-step plan for getting involved in that, starting with a resolution, which is what I've put in the back of your packet, adjusted for our town. What would our resolution look like? I had to think about how would I customize this program for Cornwall? Because this is a state program, of course, and spoke to Gordon about it, and we were thinking that it might be good to spend about a year, really, talking to the different groups in town and having them look at the program and see how they could use it. Use the framework to help their activities develop resiliency. And then even perhaps have an award just within the town that would award someone for their action that then could then be applied to the state. So I've said an awful lot. There's a lot going on. It takes a lot of encompassing. I have been talking to quite a few groups that are very on board. Like, for instance, the Land Conservation Trust is interested in jumping right into the stewarded land and natural resource piece. And the Conservation Commission is interested in actually parenting this program, if you will, with the idea that I would be a liaison to it and would serve as a volunteer to that commission. That was a thought. Let's see. Why don't I just let you look at this for a minute and see if you have any questions. This was launched recently at the, what's the title? Council of Municipalities?
Yeah, Connecticut Council.
Yeah. And just to voice it, January 18th is when they're coming to Torrington. At 10 in the morning, unfortunately, but at January 18th they're coming to Torrington to present this. The networking factor, the sharing of best practices is, I think, key to the idea of resiliency, the idea of sharing knowledge, resources, etc. with other towns is a key benefit to this program.
So you're here to tell us about this program,
Yeah,
which you are,
yeah.
and or inform us about it, and maybe there's been some prior information from COG. Are you, and for the town to move in this direction, which I
Right.
think at some level we already have been doing.
That's right. And they do let you submit past actions. For instance, I think our net zero town offices would be a good thing to submit, for instance.
So you're looking to be the Cornwall liaison for the program and to have us pass a resolution which you have in the back of our packet. Is that fair?
Yes,
Summarize.
although I would put it in a slightly different order. I'm looking for the town to participate.
Mhm.
I am volunteering to be the liaison, if you would like.
Okay.
And that is and I have filled out, it's really kind of a form that you just filled in your town name, filled out the resolution such that that Cornwall can pass a resolution to participate in the sustainability CT program.
Got it. And do you have any interest in being on the Conservation Commission yourself?
You know, I don't think I do.
Okay. We do have some openings.
I'm happy to be a volunteer
Oh, good. Right.
for the commission,
Thought I'd
but
ask,
I don't
just-
think I want to be a
Why
member.
not? Right. Okay. Any other questions for Kate? What we might do is just take this package home and read it and then put the resolution on our agenda for next time, maybe?
Give us an opportunity to kind of read it over.
So think
and-
about it. I mean, I
Yeah,
don't see there's any real problem with it, but it's good just to have a chance to think about it, if you have any questions.
there's a lot of information to give to the different groups, so
Right.
that talking it up and discussing it among people, letting people just have a chance to talk about it is of value, I think. you
Yes.
know, You know. So I'm bringing this to the Conservation Commission hasn't seen the full program yet, so they're going to see it on Thursday night,
Okay?
for instance. You know, Land Trust is into it, and also the COG is going to be doing programs that, I don't know that they're going to be doing it, but there will be programs at the COG that refer to common projects, so that each town doesn't have to do it individually. There will be programs there that will take, for instance, an action, have a panel talk about how to do that action, and let all the towns benefit from that. That'll be going on. But each town does have to register individually, so that's why I'm here.
Right, well, thank you for being here.
Okay.
Did you get your furnace fixed?
Yes.
Good. Okay.
Kate, do you have history?
What I have is,
Or can we get copies from you guys?
Yeah. You have a lot of
Okay.
flyers.
also,
Start with that.
I put my name down, and the two people at Eastern Connecticut to call, they're the outreach directors about that.
I'm gonna do-
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
I'm not sure if somebody doesn't have the detailed actions, there's that.
I don't have that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Good, thank you.
Right. Next we have bridge updates with Roger King. He's been busy. Got the Cover Bridge, Bank Bridge, Smith Place Bridge, and Fort Hill Bridge. The big news is the Cover Bridge, I think. So I'll let Roger tell us.
Let's start with the covered bridge, 'cause
Yeah.
that's the one that, last Thursday I went to a meeting at the DOT district office in Thomaston, and I was very impressed. There were, I think, 2 people from the contractor that's going to do the work. I represented the town. There was more than a dozen state employees there to talk about what they already knew. So at any rate, I'll leave a copy of this for the board. Sure, this is just to interpret my notes, which I will get into. Anyhow, the job is going to start on Thursday.
This is the Cover Bridge in
The Cover
West
Bridge.
Cornwall, which we've had meetings
This
with.
Thursday?
Yes.
Yeah.
The day after tomorrow. The time is going to start on the project. You have to realize, when they say things are going to start, that doesn't mean somebody's going to go out there and start, jackhammering the floor. The time on the project is 224 days. The project is $1.3 million. So the time on the project starts on Thursday, which is December 21st. What is more of an interest locally is the Route 128 will be closed for 29 days starting the day after Labor Day. And that time period will end before Columbus Day, which is the next holiday weekend. So they have just under 1 month to close the road.
When they came out here, do you remember when they were talking about closing it? Was it that time?
Yep.
That was about the time they were talking about September.
And what I gave to Joyce there is a copy of an email from Mary Baker. She
Right.
was the one that conducted the meeting, the
Labor Day's the
public
4th.
hearing.
Right.
That's what I'm looking for, yeah.
It's Labor Day's early this year, which is nice.
It's the 3rd. Labor Day's the 3rd, so you're talking about starting September 4th.
Day after Labor Day.
Closing the bridge.
Tuesday. The project is going to start, I mean, technically, this Thursday. Now, in March, they expect to be out on the bridge, actually they've got to do some measurements and make some determinations. It's a design build project, which is going to be done by Mohawk Northeast. So they have to submit some details, at least, plans and details that, how they're going to do some of the structural repair on the bridge. And a lot of that can be done while traffic is on the bridge. They have to do some back testing while they're there and things like that. But those are the more or less important factors. There's a set of specifications and a set of plans in the center of the table right there. I brought them back from Thomaston. So to give you a chance to take a look at the plans and specs.
So
Comprehensive.
Mohawk Northeast was the company that did the bridge on Lower River Road that got washed out in
Right.
Irene and did it very quickly. Did they put anything in this contract to speed the process up or give them
Yes.
bonuses? So
Yes.
and allow them to work late into the night if they so choose, or whatever they can do to keep the closure to a minimum, because we've repeatedly expressed an interest in.
The 29 days they feel is the minimum, but they do plan on working 6 days a week. They're not planning on working on Sundays at this point. That's not out of the question as far as the state's concerned. They do plan on working, they're estimating 12 hours a day, 6 days a week, once they get started. Now, they haven't actually determined how they're going to approach the construction details on the bridge. That's what they're going to be doing. They're in March out on the bridge doing what I'll call survey work, doing physical measurements.
Do you know are there any bonuses or incentives for them to finish early?
Yes, in
There
the
are.
overall contract, yes.
Good.
And that's in the special provisions there.
Right.
I forget how much it is per day, but there's a penalty if they run over, there's a reward if they work.
Good.
When you say overall contract, are the bonuses related to overall or just the 29-day
No,
closure
overall, I
time?
believe.
So it may not be related to the 29-day
I'd have
closure.
to read that. I mean, I didn't read all of that.
Sure, sure.
They did discuss it, and that it is specifically, there's a special provision which explains where the reward and penalty is applied. So I figured I'd drop it off and let you guys take a look at it.
So there is, and if somewhere in there's an address or a person we can talk to, and
Oh,
if
on
we.
the letter is the project engineer, his name and telephone number are highlighted on the letter. Mary Baker's on there.
Is Mary Baker the engineer or someone?
Well, she was involved in the project. Remember when she was here,
Right.
she was the project engineer. She
Right.
had apparently been assigned to a different project now that it's been initiated. And this fellow, Mark Sanowski, is going to be the project manager for the DOT, and he's out of the Thomaston office. And it sounds like he'll probably have a field office here in Cornwall during the actual construction.
Right. So if this board wanted to write Mary Baker a letter and just say we're pleased they've got a very good firm working for them and whatever they can do to expedite the work and get it done, because I think there is a real public safety concern in addition to the commercial concern of having the bridge closed. So I don't think it wouldn't hurt for us to say that even if they work on Sundays, we don't care. I mean, Priscilla's the one that's actually gonna hear the noise, but.
Should the letter
um,
go to Mary
Well, I
Baker
think
or to
Mary-
Mark?
Yeah, I think Kevin Blasey, if you notice the third line down under Mary, you get Mary's email, my email, and then Kevin Blasey
Yeah,
and Mark Sanowski. Those are the two people who are now going to be heading up the project.
right.
I think Kevin's out of the bridge design section in Newington, and Mark is in the district office as the project manager.
But Mary's the boss. Who's the boss?
No, Mary is got a different assignment now.
Uh-huh.
I did talk to her, and she explained what she was doing, and she's explained the project that she was working on, but I wasn't paying much attention to it.
Right,
She
so
has
we can write
a
all-
different assignment.
We can write all three.
Oh, sure, and I'm sure
Right.
she is
Make sure
actually
they
at a
get it.
higher level than either of these two individuals are. As far
Good,
as on
so we go to the top.
Overall total.
Right.
The idea of writing it to all three of them or.
Right, why not?
Yeah,
I mean,
as long as
it's-
they know you know somebody over them, they pay more attention.
Right, that's good. Okay,
So that's what I found out about
right.
the covered
Can
bridge.
you just,
Yeah,
very quickly, what they're gonna do to the bridge?
they're
What gonna-
rehabilitating the orthopedic deck. Now, the covered bridge is not a wooden bridge, really. It's a steel bridge. And the steel bridge is inside the wooden structure that you drive over and look at. The wooden structure essentially just holds up the roof. And it looks pretty. But it's called an orthotropic steel deck. And that's what holds the traffic. And the bridge is still good for all legal weight loads. It's vertically restricted, but that's the only physical restriction of the bridge.
So in the 1970s, the state did a major bridge project. They were going to demolish the bridge and make a big concrete overpass, but that didn't fly. So they basically jacked the bridge up, raised the bridge up, and put a steel bridge underneath the wooden bridge. And so the problem now is that due to the road salts and chemicals that are used, the steel superstructure underneath the wooden bridge is deteriorated. So this is
It's also
basically
45, 50 years later.
yeah. I mean, it's lasted a long time, but and especially out, being a bridge over the river, it's wet. So they're basically redoing the steel superstructure underneath the bridge. In order to do that, they got to take up the planks.
So it's a rehabilitation of the existing. They're not going to change the structure at all. It'll just be a rehabilitation of the structure they put in back in the early 70s.
But are they gonna take away the ladder?
That remains to be seen. That was discussed at the public hearing, and I believe they probably will, in the sense that they still plan on putting the boards back in longitudinally. Right now, they're all transverse boards, so when you go across each individual board, it rattles. And you can hear oncoming traffic. It sounds like a train coming.
That's how you know someone's coming through,
Right.
yeah.
So I think as it stands right now, the new boards will be put in longitudinally in the direction of traffic.
Would they consider keeping them at all?
Well, the longitudinal boards really doesn't make an awful lot of sense to me, but the reason you put them in transversely is because you get a weight transfer on each individual board. If you do it longitudinally, you're only getting a weight transfer on a very few boards. But I'm not a designer, so it still remains to be seen, but I think the plan, and you have it right in front of you, you can take a look and see if it shows longitudinal, that's called a wearing surface. So the wearing surface will remain timber, but the load transfers to steel.
So then,
The whole reason for this covered bridge was a lead-in to Smith Place.
but let's finish the question. So then, the consensus of the board that I'll write them a letter asking them to expedite the work being done for public safety and health of our businesses in the town.
Well, also to remind them that, yes, exactly, that's
Right,
correct.
that
Remind them
this
that
is
this is one
important.
of the main things that was brought up at the summer.
Right.
Summer meeting? I think the summer or fall meeting that when they met.
And we know that Mohawk can work well and do quality work in a short period of time, and we encourage that to happen, or something like that. So anyway, I will write that. Okay? Agree?
Yes.
Sounds good.
All set? Good. All right, on to what's the next?
With those golden accolades you just made there, I had an opportunity to talk to Mohawk Northeast. I talked to Russ Henke, who is the
Right.
principal of the company, and talked to him about Smith Place.
Yes.
And we talked about a theoretical possibility where the Board of Selectmen is considering different options for the repair or removal of Smith Place Bridge. Now, one of the considerations that I brought to Mohawk Northeast was if we wanted to replace the bridge, it would best be done while the road was closed. A separate contract, separate crew, doing a precast superstructure replacement. I asked them if they thought it could be done during the road closure time period. And Russ said he saw no reason why it couldn't easily be done in that time frame. From Route 28, 128 closed. So we're going to have to encroach onto Route 128 and work from one lane of the state highway.
Is it possible that the town wanting to close one lane of Route 128 impact this project?
Probably not. It will impact the traffic in the village, but it will not impact the construction on Route 128.
There wouldn't be anything coming down 128 that would be an oversized load that could be...
Extremely doubtful. You can get a permit to do that, the state would have control over issuing that permit.
Right, well, I understand that's...
I just can't imagine what you wouldn't be delivering a transformer to West Cornwall during that 29-day period.
Would there be something that's possibly oversized that would be part of this project?
That would affect the lane closure on 128? No.
Yeah, that's what this project, the covered bridge project,
But no, I don't think so.
something's going to be oversized that's pre-made somewhere else and gets delivered to the site?
The only thing they would have that would be of a large nature would be equipment, cranes, nothing more than 12 feet wide.
All right,
So it would not.
get that there ahead of time.
So that would be exciting. So if this is all to work by September, obviously we need to get going on a process. So the process would be
It would be another design-build project.
Right.
With the concept being that they would precast a two-piece deck.
Right.
Each piece would be about 8 feet in width. The existing bridge is about 16 feet. So we make a two-piece superstructure, remove the existing one, repair the bridge seat. There are two seats, one on each bank. So we repair the bridge seats, do some repointing of the walls under the bridge seat, then place the new superstructure, literally take it off a flatbed truck and put it in place. So it'd be a two-piece superstructure, each piece being approximately 8 feet in width and 22 foot in length.
Could a crane do that from the 128 side
Yes.
without any problem?
With a problem, yes. The
Power.
problem being overhead
Yeah.
wires. So we would probably have to find a means of using two machines. One, the weight isn't the problem, it's working with the overhead wires. And that could be a big problem. But Russ Henke said if we asked him to, they would come out and take a look at it and see if they could figure a way around it.
He's
He's
the
the
power,
one of the principals of the company. He was at this meeting with the DOT. We had an opportunity to talk about it.
principal of which company, of Mohawk?
Mohawk Conference.
So then what we would do would be to get we would have to have some engineering done we'd still have to go to bid even though they're gonna be there. The fact that they're closing the road, we still can have competitive bids to do the same work in the same amount of time. We're not bound to use
Mohawk.
them even though we know they're good.
You could use Acme Construction and just be
Right.
at the same time.
Mohawk would have the advantage of already having pieces of equipment right there.
They're familiar with the water course and all that. No matter who does it, I'd recommend we do this job as a design build type job. It's very much a custom bridge. It would have to be pre-built ahead of time so that it could just be assembled on site.
And after they put the superstructure on the refinished seats, you just fill it and pave it, or do you just pave over that, or what?
Yeah, well, probably a concrete surface. You put what's called a membrane waterproofing on the top of the concrete, and then just put asphalt on top of that. And again, I would recommend that we go with a concrete structure, get away from the steel. The problem with the bridges now is the steel components. It's over a lot of frame. After 50, 60 years, you can't expect much more. The concrete, I would expect twice that bridge length.
So do we would need to get Batista or somebody engaged to do some specifications of what we're actually looking for? Because we have to have, in order to bid it, we have to have some documents saying what we want and what our expectations are, right?
So there would be some preliminary engineering that would
Right.
be, Batista would probably be as good as anyone to do that.
Right, so we should, if we're gonna talk about,
Well, it depends which way we're going to go. We
Right.
have two, diametrically opposed options here. One being relocating a driveway. This bridge only serves half a dozen houses.
right.
So if it could be eliminated, that would probably be more cost effective in the long run.
Right. So what I would propose that I'd talk to the abutting landowners in early January to find out whether there's any interest in granting the town a permanent road relocation on their property, and then if there's not, then we go talk to David about doing.
And the preliminary engineering necessary to
Right.
design the bridge project.
And he would have to give us some calculation that the structure, not the opening that exists, that's there. I'm not sure what the term is. That's not necessarily the right term for the water flow.
That waterway opening.
The waterway opening is adequate,
Right.
and we shouldn't be enlarging it or raising the deck
Right, so it would remain the same, and the state really provides that information along with their inspection report. They inspect that bridge once every 2 years.
and they've said that that is adequate.
It's adequate, yeah. What might be more of a concern is that, is it subject to scour? And we're going to assume that the next two bridges are both state bridges, that it is no more subject to scour than the next two bridges. I mean, all bridges are subject to scour given, some unknown storm. But it hasn't shown any deterioration in that manner for the past 60 years. So I'm not too concerned about that. I think that as long as we don't disturb the foundation of the bridge, it will remain exactly the way it is. So all we're going to do is do a superstructure, which is from the bridge seats up.
The next two bridges are state bridges, the 128 and the railroad bridge?
The railroad bridge, and then The next bridge is the town bridge, which is the upper river road.
Well, there's the 128 bridge though, too.
Right, 128 is the next bridge.
Right.
And the railroad bridge is the next bridge. Then you've got
The
River
town
Road.
bridge, right.
And you've got Lower River Road.
Right.
Down the river.
Okay.
Okay, so that's that one.
That's that one. Then on to the gravel bank bridge, we got a email from Dave Batista, which I think I forwarded you, saying he had some preliminary estimates of work that could be done in view of our non-winter so far. Roger questioned the need to delineate the wetlands on the site because we've already had some work done in that regard.
We have had some work done, and the wetlands, there is very little wetlands. There is a water course.
Right.
So what I'd like to do is I'd like to talk to Karen about the need to hire a soil engineer to go out and make a determination of the fact there are no wetland soils other than that, which is literally the bank of the river, because the water course is really the primary concern. So I don't think we need to delineate 4 foot either side of the bank of the existing river.
Right, and she had somebody we've used before, Cynthia Rabinowitz of the
Right.
Soil Conservation District, who I believe is a soil scientist, that can delineate wetlands for much less than $1,500. So she seemed to be open to getting a phone call from you to work on that path.
I definitely will talk
And
about that.
so it'll be $1,500, and then as Dave wouldn't have to coordinate that work, not that we're trying to deprive him of his livelihood, but if we can get it done for less, it doesn't, again, wouldn't affect what we really do for the work, because we're going to protect the water course no matter what, whether there's 5 feet of wetlands on the other side or 50 feet. So this would just be
The survey, the
Less on
survey's the key thing. We need,
Right, we need the survey primarily, and that's, again, to make a determination on the size of the structure, getting back to that waterway opening.
right.
So what I would recommend is a bridge very similar to the one we did on Flat Rock Road. In the same type of water control, and talking to Dave Batista about it, I went up to his office and sat down and talked to him for an hour or so, and that we could build a containment area, a cofferdam, and channelize the water into a pipe, thereby piping it through the construction site, again, within the existing channel of Mill Brook.
Just like was done on Flat Rocks.
Yes, very, very much the same.
Or some, yeah.
Flat Rock, the only difference was you actually had a dam, which created a reservoir. We would do the same thing with sandbags and create an impoundment area for the water. So anyhow, that too, using Batista's services for preliminary engineering, I'd suggest we do that as a design build, recommending a precast concrete structure, but allow whoever wants to bid on it to come up with their own proposals. I'm in the low maintenance requirements for precast concrete structures is one of the reasons I'm a strong advocate of those rather than steel structures.
So our timing is we are proposing to go to the Board of Finance with Roger because they have a strong interest in what we're doing before we get too carried away or too far down the road. So after we have to survey the property no matter what we're doing.
Right.
So we could get tonight. We can authorize the survey, hold the wetlands, and tell him that after we get the Board of Finance up to date this next month, we can agree to have him do some preliminary design work.
Right.
So that
And
was
it's more
the sequence.
type rather than, it's not really the design of the structure, it's more design of the type of the structure.
Right, but is he qualified? He's the person that would then oversee some bid documents or something,
Right.
because we have to make sure it's tight.
Why, the previous project, Flat Rocks, Cardinal I think, designed the bridge, designed the structure. We, the town, had the structure created and delivered, and we hired a firm to install it. That's what they bid on. They bid on installing the structure that we were putting in. They didn't guarantee the structure, they didn't buy the structure.
Right.
We had the engineer design the structure.
Technically, no. We had an engineer design the project in that they specified a contact precast concrete structure. Now, contact does the shop drawings. Those are the specific.
So
where the
I guess my question is, I don't need the exactness.
Okay.
My question is, why aren't we going to do it the same way and
Because we don't want to spend $52,000 that we spent with Cardinal.
on the engineering?
Exactly. So we're going to hire Lennard to do what's called preliminary engineering, which types the structure, sizes the structure, locates the structure.
Right, right?
Then we go to the contractor and say, okay, now you go to another engineer and have the structure designed.
But and Contact won't do that. Contact, or what?
Contact will do that.
Contact
They'll
will-
design the bridge. They don't want to do the location, they don't want to do the hydraulic study, they don't want to do all the preliminary engineering. They're quite happy, they have cookie cutters. You know, you give them the height, the width, the length of the bridge, they plug it into their computer and bang, here's the plans. And it has all the rebars located, that's why they can do it as inexpensively.
And that's, so we're sort of coming up with what we need for distance, width, volume.
Preliminary engineering, yeah.
Okay, so we are, but it's preliminary.
Yeah, so now we're not doing the detailed engineering
Okay.
that Cardinal did. Now Cardinal took we had soil testing done, both at
Both.
Gravel Bank
Right,
and Flat Rock Road at the same time. Well, they had to interpret that. And was a precast spread footing going to be adequate there? They made that determination. And now that they've done that, we can reuse that same information
right,
again.
right.
So we're
And
kind of trimming down, we paid Cardinal a specific contract to do the design of Flat Rock Road. Now we're going to use that information to allow some other engineer to hire a firm very similar to Contact. to
our
design
pencil
it,
has gotten sharper as we're moving down the bridges.
shade it a little bit.
Presumably after preliminary design by Lennard,
Mhm.
goes out to a bid of some sort, a design and build.
Right, yep.
We would then have that concept, whoever it be, checked again by our engineer, by Lennard.
Right, Lennard would go over the shop drawings and approve them.
Right, okay, yep, thank you.
So there's, it's also appropriate for Lennard to start developing a proposal for us for his services.
Right.
So we, he can get going on that, because they're sort of almost the same thing in both projects. So, again, we got holidays coming up.
Right.
January is January.
So as he says in his letter, what he needs is at least the survey work so that
Right.
he can go ahead and start his office work
Right,
on Wednesday.
okay. So then,
Take us to another bridge.
no, we're not finished with this one yet.
Okay.
So then, I'd make a motion that we would accept Dave Batista's proposal to get a survey done on Gravel Bank Bridge as he's outlined in his letter of December 14th. Is there a second? And we will hold do the inland wetlands work as requested by the Inland Wetlands Commission, but not as laid out in the letter. Okay,
Now maybe this would be a good time, we could do all these bridges right along there all at the same time, when 128's closed.
right, building boom.
That, it might work out that way. The gravel bank will be entirely independent and very different.
No, I realize
I mean,
that.
is it theoretically possible that Mohawk Northeast might want that one too?
Well, they may want to do them not concurrently. the third one, the gravel bank wouldn't necessarily want to be done concurrently, want to be done consecutively because all the equipment is there. But they would move the equipment. I don't think they would want, I think 2 projects
Right.
simultaneously is probably enough.
Yeah, two at a time is probably enough, but there's no reason why it can't be done the same summer, the same
Yes,
construction
yes.
season that's coming.
Not the same month.
Okay, so we're clear on, we're asking for a survey for the gravel bank bridge area. So all those in favor? Aye. So our next thing to do is to ask Mr. Batista for a proposal to do the preliminary engineering, bid documents, RFP, and review of shop drawings for these 2 projects. So I'll move we ask him to do that also.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Good. So now on to the next bridge.
Okay. The next bridge, I don't think we really have to do much with. I talked to the new coordinator for the local bridge program. She is the coordinator for both the federal and the state local bridge program. Her name is Pretty Bardwar. And she said she would send me an email essentially stating the fact that although we are welcome to apply for funds, now this is Ford Hill Road that I'm specifically talking about. Ford Hill Road is a bridge that is in pretty good, in very good structural condition. But the paint system, which was the original paint system on the bridge, probably put on back in the 1960s, is just failing. It's I don't want to say evaporating, but it is just wearing away through wind erosion. It's on a Ford Hill Road is not, it's very much a rural road. It's not a collector. It doesn't fit into any of the federal requirements. I talked to her about the classification of the road, and it doesn't qualify for a lot of federal funding. It does have a lot of federal requirements when it comes to painting, but I've got the application form, which I will leave with you to take a look at. I've got her phone number and email, but she says there are no funds. There are no state funds, and that would be the first funds that might be available. The road classification is so lightly used, it's theoretically eligible for federal funds, but there would be no federal funds for it for a very long time.
Back to Smith Place, are there any state or federal funds available for that?
I will talk to Rick Lynn. I did talk to him about a week ago, said I was going to stop by. I stopped by, he had someplace to go, but I want to sit down and talk to him about, my guess is, because we're going to do it the way we want to do it,
It won't apply.
it
So-
probably won't apply.
Are there ever likely to be state or federal funds in view of the low traffic on Fort Hill? Is there ever likely to be federal funds? Granted,
If there were a federal program where you were looking for, if you will, shovel-ready projects, as they call them.
yeah.
Now, this isn't going to require any shovels or no excavation, but we ought to apply to put this in the program, should the program ever be reinitiated.
Right. Our problem though is that the money we have to do these things,
This is future money.
I know, but we have bonded money to do this now, which we do. We have a constraint
Right.
because of the bond to do all the work in 3 years. So
This would be beyond that.
this may be beyond it, but on the other hand, if we have money,
Okay, then
It may be-
next bridge. Right upstream, Fort Hill Road goes over the Hollenbeck River. Just upstream from Fort Hill Road is Lake Road. And Lake Road has a much greater volume of traffic. And that is a culvert, is what is there now. And the culvert is slowly collapsing. So I would move that higher up on our hit parade as far as the bridges we want to work on. And after Smith Place and the Gravel Bank Bridge, I think that there are more likely to be some state funds available. Again, that would be a more environmentally sensitive,
For Lake Road, you're saying? There's possibly state funding.
yes, according to the old program. There is no funds for the new program. It's that is something we could do if we had to do with our own funds. Would be much more doable.
And would we fill out the same form for Fort Hill? I mean, for
For Fort Hill,
Fort
yeah.
Hill and Lake Road, they both would get the same?
Right, but I think Fort Hill, it's more important to fill that out for in order to get in the program for some future date, 5, 6 years from now. And again, the structure is in good condition, even with the failing paint, just to protect the investment we have there. But Lake Road is something that we ought to consider doing with the funds that are available in the short term.
Are the funds that we're attempting to apply for, or attempting to access, they're state funds and they're federal funds? There's two different pools of
Two
monies.
different programs.
And the state has no money, and
The
the
federal
president
is
just
not
gave
gonna
all
be-
the federal money away to his friends. So
That's
there may
very
not be much funding
Fort
for
Hill
it.
Road, long-term, more than 5 years down the road.
But the Lake Road is not eligible for federal? Or maybe?
Probably not. I mean, it might be depending on the road classification, but the likelihood of getting any funds within the next 3 years from either program is, I've been talking to this young lady that's taken over both of these programs, and she does it very much on a part-time basis, because she says you can file for it, but
There's no money.
So I just.
So maybe what we need to do then is to see, after we get the work, or at least the bids done for Smith's Place and the gravel bank, see how much money's left in the bond.
Right. And then the next priority would be Lake Road.
How complex are these to fill out?
You know, I mean, outside of estimating, and that's all you really have to do, apparently.
Can you estimate this, or do you need an engineer to give you?
Probably, I mean, if I can fill out the form, as long as Gordon signs the bottom of it.
So for Lake Road, what's the damage in asking a finding from DOT who a painting contractor is and get an estimate of how much it would cost to get it done? To get a bit, to have somebody come out here, the same way we're having Mohawk Northeast, just to have somebody come out here, because we don't know really whether it's $100,000, $50,000, $300,000, $400,000, because it's something we haven't done before.
Again,
Or I wonder even whether Mohawk Northeast must, because I've seen them inspect, there must be somebody on the state bid list that just paints steel bridges, isn't there?
and doing it without state or federal aid
Right.
is what you're getting.
Well, I'm just curious to see what it would cost, because I mean, it doesn't cost us anything to get a quote.
Right.
And if I'm suspect whether there's ever going to be federal or state money for Fort Hill, I think Lake Road is much more likely. But if we can make a determination, which I think we can, that that's probably not going to check all the boxes anytime soon, at least we can find out again what, I mean, I think Batista said it was 300,000, but until somebody that really does it for a living tells us what it's going to cost, we don't really know what it's going to cost. At some point.
The regulations are what's going to drive the cost
Right.
of a painting project.
For any bridge. So anybody that paints bridges
Right.
for a living must know approximately what that would be. But that'd be good, at some point, to just have somebody come out, if we can find out who does all the work. But I would think Mohawk might know who does that, or somebody might know.
Yeah, the state has a list of pre-qualified paint
Paint
contractors.
people, good,
I will look into that.
great. Okay,
And that concludes my dissertation for tonight.
good. All right, because we have other things to do, but thank you very much.
But
I think-
the important thing is that the two bridges that are of the most concern
Right.
are the two that
Get in tackle.
we're moving forward on.
We're talking to Lenard as far as doing the preliminary engineering.
And the next two, while have concerns are different,
Cornwall and Lincoln.
different concerns, and we have a longer time frame. So that's a good move on, a good movement on the bridges.
Okay,
Excuse me, Gordon, how much do you have set aside for 2 years?
we have a bond of $1.5 million, of which we have spent about $500,000 of that, maybe a little less, right?
I'll have to file another time sheet.
There you go. Good, all right, thank you, Roger. Next we have appointments. We got a letter from Town Clerk Vera Deneen, who would like us to appoint Brian Kenny, reappoint Brian Kenny and Jean Boulier to the sub-registrars, as they've been doing it for 4 years.
If that's is that a motion?
I'll make a motion.
I'll second that.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Moving right along.
Moving right along, the Economic Development Committee got a letter from Janet Sanders. We're recommending we add Eric Tietz and Branka Griggs to the board. They're recommending that we do this for the approval. Today's find was that we've appointed the maximum amount of Democrats to the Economic Development Committee. I think I sent you an email on this. So
Yes, you did
Joyce
send an
gave
email.
me the update, and all of a sudden I saw 6 Ds in a row on the Economic Development Committee, which again is not.
Is 6 out of 10 the maximum, or 7 out of 10?
Is 6 out of 10.
I mean, what becomes more than?
Here's the statute. It's 2/3 of the members. So just to be clear on
It's
this, I did
2/3,
call up
okay.
Hurley and asked about that, but that's the statute that any board or commission has to have minority representation. It's basically rule of 2/3, so you could say 6, you could say 7.
Well, it's 6 and
So our problem is
it's a problem.
we had David Delinsky, who was already on the board, who we haven't reappointed. We got Bianca Griggs, who is a Democrat, and we have Eric, who is not yet registered to vote. So we're kind of stuck for the time being, I think. So that's unfortunate.
No, it's just,
And I have to confess, I did not even think of this when we were going through this before.
Can I ask a quick question?
Yes.
I find this interesting. We have more unaffiliated
No.
voters.
Yeah, we have more Democrats than unaffiliated.
Well, I was going to say the Republicans.
Yeah,
But, so you really do have 3 parties in many towns, especially the town of Cornwall.
right.
So really you have almost no representation of the unaffiliated voters.
Well, actually what you find is both parties do run unaffiliated candidates, and certainly we,
Yeah,
and the statute only addresses you cannot have more people on the commission of one party. It doesn't matter whether the minority is unaffiliated or a Republican. The problem is we do not have either
But
one.
should the state legislature address the fact that you have an awful lot of taxation without representation in the
Well-
fact that the unaffiliated voters are not represented on many boards.
But it's up, two things. An unaffiliated person that's their choice. They can join a party or not, so it's their choice to be unaffiliated, and they certainly have a right to run for any board, and even run under a party name if that's what they want to do.
I've heard people do that.
Yes, in fact, I think you've been successful at it yourself. Good.
Exactly.
So I think we're stymied at the present point to do this, but we certainly can put it on our agenda, because I would have liked to grant the request of the Economic Development Committee as well as reappoint Dave Delinsky to the committee. But right now, with everybody being registered as a Democrat, we are stuck. People change their I mean, to me, the obvious thing, if they change to be unaffiliated, then we could appoint them to be on the committee. That may be a way to do this, but I can't instruct them to do so or whatever. All we can do is say we have the maximum amount of Democrats on the committee at the present time.
So we're really stymied, we can't.
Right. I mean, the only other person with Simon Hewitt is unaffiliated, but again, I'd rather go back and tell the people that were recommended or have served, this is where we're at, and let them decide.
So what you're suggesting is that Bianca or
David,
could
if
change
they could change to-
unaffiliated if they wanted to?
Right.
And then we wouldn't have a problem.
Correct, for this. making
And the
this
other
appointment
person,
is David.
Dave has to register to vote.
No,
Dave.
Eric.
Oh, Eric. Eric was the
Right,
one that
you have
has
to
it.
be an
yeah.
elector, according to our statute, according to our ordinance.
And if he registered
since-
as an unaffiliated,
Then he can go on.
then he
Yeah.
could be appointed. If he registers as a Democrat,
Well, then I think we need to let both Bianca and
Right.
Eric know that
Right.
and be very clear
Dave.
about it.
There's actually 3 seats. So we did not appoint David, so we didn't hear back from him. So it's David, Bianca, and Eric. So there's 3 potential openings. So we could say we would be willing to appoint them, but we can't at the present time because of this statute.
because of the statute and the makeup of the
Yes.
the current
Right.
members.
So will you send that out to them,
Right.
Gordon?
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. So then, next we had more appointments. We had we had Andrew McDavid, who did relay his interest through Karen Nelson of serving on the Inland Wetlands Agency. So I'd make a motion that we would reappoint Andrew. In that particular board, you have 3 Republicans, 1 unaffiliated, and 1 Democrat.
Which board?
This is Inland Wetlands.
Inland wetlands.
So I make a motion, we reappoint Andrew McDavid to the Inland Wetlands.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Then for Northwest Regional Mental Health Board, we have Kimberly Sullivan, who's interested in serving again. There's only 1 person, so that doesn't matter what party she is. So I make a motion we reappoint Kimberly Sullivan as Northwest Regional Mental Health Representative.
Second.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Then, Park and Recreation Commission, we have appointed, there are 4 incumbents, we've appointed 3 regular members, 1 alternate. We still need 1 full member and 1 unaffiliated member for Park and Rec.
And we don't have people lining up for that with those.
We haven't heard anything from that. I have heard
Okay.
some interest in planning and zoning board of appeals, but nothing in writing to date. We did get writing from Lisa Lansing talking about the senior committee, which said they are at this point ready to there's no need at the present for a senior committee.
This is the senior committee because Park and Rec is doing such a good job? Is
Right,
that-
and the social services.
And this is something that the chair, is Lisa the chair?
There is no chair at the present time
Is Lisa stating the opinion
for the other people.
for the other people also, or for
Right.
just for herself? Or
Uh,
is that the opinion of the?
on behalf of the committee.
Okay,
So,
I think we did get that. We did get a
Yeah.
copy of that, but I just can't
right,
remember
so
how
at this
it was
point, there's
worded.
no action to be taken because there's no,
So no action.
no action on the senior committee. So that's about where we're at with appointments for the time being. Let's see.
Okay.
We have next. We have, I think we have, is it the petition for the West Cornwall Water Sewer Study Group. At the last meeting of the group and the Board of Selectmen was handed a petition signed by about 20 residents.
19 people, yep.
19 people, 18 of whom live in or own property or live in West Cornwall, stating they are opposed to the plans as they are currently presented. So that's, I think the committee heard that,
Yeah.
and I'm going to go out with Mr. McDonald at some point and take a look at alternate sites, potentially see what's out there. Any other thoughts on the petition?
I don't think that it's unusual in a project of this magnitude and complex to have people voicing opinions that are opposed to what's initially presented, and taking their thoughts and concerns into consideration on the development of the plan is critically important.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, I think everybody has reasons for feeling the way they do on the issue, and it's our job to try to get things accomplished, taking into account people's concerns the best we can. And I think the meeting was good, even though everybody didn't agree, but that's why we have meetings sometimes.
I think the committee has handled it very well as speaking as a committee member, because we've been very open and we've been willing to listen to everybody.
Right. And it is a small town, a very small village and a very small
Yeah.
town, so good. All right, well, we'll keep on working on that. I think the committee has another meeting scheduled. I did talk to Steve McDonald about getting into Hartford to talk to DEP in the new year to see.
Good.
Even, again, there's a bunch of work needs to be done as far as what's possible. Good night, Roger. Thank you.
Good night.
What's possible, what's not possible, so we'll just keep on hammering away trying to get things done. Speaking of doing things, next month we'll be busy with the budget things. We're going to send out letters to all the committees, boards, organizations that the town supports, ask them to be to get us a proposed budget as soon as possible. We normally meet with major department heads during January. Our goal is to get something to the Board of Finance by mid-February, so that makes January a busy month. I have already met with John Laporta and John Green and Barbara to look at a couple of things. We've gotten some school enrollment figures, and believe it or not, Cornwall's has the greatest percentage increase of the high school budget, because our numbers have stayed the same while everybody else's has gone down.
Wow.
So we're looking at $200,000 increase next year from the high school budget before we even start anything else. So that sets a bit of a tone. Looking out, there have been, again, some young people moving into town to swell some of the numbers, but we do have a big, especially a sophomore class and a small graduating class from CCS. So as the smaller classes that are in CCS begin to work into the high school, we will see that go down in the next couple of years, just not next year. So again, what we'll have to do is look at all these things we've put out as priorities for this board to accomplish and see how they fit into town's ability to pay for them. So that's what we'll be tackling next month. And so anyway, our goal this month is get those letters out and start getting requests in. Anything else on the budget? Okay. Let's see, additions to the agenda. We had a very busy council of governments meeting, which I'll stress a couple things. One, I did mention to the other 20 town representatives there for them to come to visit Cornwall to see our stores and our large solar powered Christmas tree, the largest solar powered live tree that we know of in the United States. Another town said they tried to compete but they couldn't, so they gave up on it. So we're still number one in that category. The other thing that was interesting talking to other area selectmen is the amount of local breweries and distilleries that are opening in surrounding towns. So that is one thing I'm working with planning and zoning to see if we can adapt our regulations to allow such things to happen here. But there are, it seems to be a growth industry and would fit in a rural landscape, I think, quite nicely. Several other towns are seeing some increase in their elementary school numbers. So that was interesting. Again, there was some talk about the Sustainable Connecticut with a meeting on January 18th in Torrington, and on the 30th of January they're going to have an economic summit at the Mad River Lofts in Winsted, which is a factory building that's been redone into apartments. So I can go up to that. So that should be an interesting venue for that group to do it. They've done it before down at the South Farms in Morris. So this is on the other edge of the cog. Let's see, what else did we have? We had some work that they mentioned that there's going to be the state is dividing the towns and municipalities into 4 tiers of financial health, and what they've done is that because of the state's financial problems, about 30 or 40 municipalities in Connecticut are having their bond ratings revisited and possibly lowered, just because they're so dependent on state aid, and because the state aid was so shaky this year, they're looking at a reduced bond rating, and a lot of those municipalities are the ones that need to do projects for revitalization. So it's something that will be never far away from our minds, is the state's financial problems and the need to keep our town on a very strong financial basis, because there is more and more looking at town's financials when you do go out to bond or borrow to see what condition it's in, and there's pressure on Connecticut municipalities now more than there has been. So another thing that came up was the COG region has received 2 vans. One's gone to Gear and one to Northwest Transit for senior vans, so there is more vans than ever out there going around to help seniors' needs for transportation. And again, we have ours going with Goshen, and that's cost us more than we thought because of the single ridership and not being able to aggregate rides. But Bob Valentine in Goshen thinks that we'll be able to get through the year. We have paid our $7,000 for the first half of the year, and then we should be able to leverage state funds to match that. So if we run low, we get to transfer money into that account or instruct people to go to Gear for the end of the season and ride the Gear buses. So that's the word from the COG. They also came up with 2 reports that I'll leave here, or you can take them home and read them. They're both very interesting. This is the Council of Governments Regional Plan on Conservation and Development, and their big thing, the big 3 items that I think reflect where our town is going with its town plan. It says, how can we attract, retain young people and young families to our 21 town region? How can we continue to further improve upon the high quality of life we offer to residents of all ages? And how do we balance the need to conserve land, protect water quality, and maintain the rural character of our region while also meeting our needs for housing and jobs? So it's, we're not in a lot of ways, these towns share the same challenges, but that's available, as is this report from the Northwest Regional Arts Council, and it highlights the large economic impact that the arts have in our region, and it's interesting. Amy Wynn did a very nice presentation of what's going on with the arts and drawing people to the region and the impact that has on our local economy. So, I'll give you some.
And I think Amy
some-
mentioned that the open house, the studio artist,
Right.
one of them was going to be in Cornwall. One of the towns was Cornwall.
So they're going to highlight that this year. So anyway, just more reports, paperwork, reading if you need it. It's here. Okay, any questions on all that stuff? I think 2018 will be busy. Then today Pearlie sent us a letter, which I think I forwarded to you, saying there was Frontier Communications has applied to the Public Utility Regulatory Authority to try to limit the amount that towns can use their telephone poles to site either cable or facilities on their telephone poles. And he was all ready to go to bat to file intervenor status, and I felt at the current time I'll take a look at this, but I think this is one of the reasons that we joined the Conference of Municipalities and costs is so they can participate as one, as opposed to each town having to hire their own attorney to intervene on these matters for us. So
Frontier filed this with
the Public Utility Control. So apparently there's some reservation on power poles that allow municipalities to put our stuff on their poles. There's now more stuff all the time is being hung off there. First it was just telephone and power, then cable, and now fiber optics. So obviously it's a pretty valuable piece of real estate on top of the poles. So what Frontier's asked is that they become the sole, they would basically kick the municipalities, eliminate that ability to put our stuff on their pole.
They only control some of the poles.
Correct.
They don't. Many of the poles are the power poles. However they share that, however that is done, I don't know, but certainly the original SNAT poles, there's lots of CL&P poles.
Right, so anyway, we'll pursue that issue, just to let you know.
Sure.
I don't think we're gonna be the decisive factor in that case, but it's out there.
It's a statewide issue, is what you're...
Right. So the last thing that came in today was Paul Prindle has been working for us on looking at the West Cornwall Firehouse. This was identified in the energy audits as a building in need of insulation, and he has a report for us, which I haven't read yet. He estimates the budget as he currently constructs it to be about $9,000. We do have that in-town resources to do it.
Two ceiling fans that blow air out?
Yeah, it's kind of a crazy thing that goes back to the days of heavy smoke in the firehouse when people used to sit there at the meetings and smoke, which luckily has become a past practice. And so apparently they put in these huge exhaust fans that would suck all the smoke and hot air out of the room, and there's still some hot air, but there's no smoke. So anyway, those are held to be a surplus item, but they're big. They're like 3-foot fans.
With, what do you call it, louvers?
Yeah.
Wow.
It says it's an attached quotation. I don't see an attached quotation. Was there one? Do you know what they're talking about money-wise?
He didn't leave a quotation, but he said the amount was 9,000.
Oh, okay.
Just the insulation part.
So there has been discussion about some kinds of renovation taking place
Right.
at the building,
Yeah.
at the firehouse.
Right. This wouldn't really affect that.
Okay, that's the key thing, that you
Right.
don't want to be removing whatever you're
No,
installing.
this is a separate
This is strictly,
standalone project.
I mean, this is over the firehouse, but it's over, this is covering a lot of areas.
Right, it's covering the whole 3 sections of the firehouse.
So where would
The stuff they're talking about reconfiguring is down in the bays underneath all this. So you have your ceiling, and this would go on top of the ceiling. Then the removing the room and reconfiguring things down in the bays would be below the ceiling. So this wouldn't impact that.
is it possible that some kind of renovation would then cause things to be changed up above?
No. Not what they're thinking. Not with the scope of what they're doing.
The current,
Either they're going to replace the furnace the way it is, leave it all the way it is, or they're going to take stuff out.
you're taking removing the
But-
boiler, moving it out of there was one of
Right.
the thoughts.
Right, but they'd add it to another part, so this would be a fairly minor adjustment to be made, if any, on this particular part of things. So the next, see, there's a bunch of work that then, in addition, would need to be done before to set this up, because the last thing actually to do is to blow. I mean, my understanding, we have to get, some electrical wiring done, some of the existing ineffective insulation has to be out of there. So there's some work that would have to be done by either a carpenter or electrician. Anyway, so I think this is sort of the second quote we need. So we'll still need to get information and get this other stuff done before we do the installation. So I don't think we have to act on this tonight, but it's just something we'd like to get going this winter if we can.
I have probably a dumb question.
No
What's the
dumb
scuttle? Where's the scuttle hole?
The scuttle hole, all that is like a little hatchway to get up there. There's no stairway.
Oh.
So this is like a ceiling.
Yeah.
And there's no, you just go through a little hatchway.
No drop down ladder? No, just a hole.
No, you just have one of the
Okay,
fire department ladders and you go up.
thank you.
There's no insulation in there, in the,
On top of the scuttle? No. Right.
No, they want to put a box out so the
Right.
insulation doesn't fall through the
Yeah.
scuttle hole.
right, and then maybe somehow
Yeah.
over it, put a piece
Yeah.
of,
Something.
something, yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, that's a work in progress. We don't have to take any action on, but hopefully we can
Okay,
get some more prices and stuff. Okay?
thank you.
You're welcome. Any public comments? Okay?
I'm just
Everybody's
wondering-
done?
I have
Yes.
one quick thing.
Yes.
Is it the
Okay.
engineer that I sent you from Eversource who
Yep.
had sent those, sent those recommendations to the audit?
Yep.
He's still employed. You can still use him.
Good. Yeah, we're getting down to the nitty gritty on it all, so.
Would like some papers. Can we ask for that now?
Papers?
Like a copy of the petition?
Yes, you can have a copy of petition. You want to see all the signatures or just a sample? You got to see all of them, Ruth? Okay.
Well, hopefully that news.
Oh, okay.
Here, it is.
Eric's
That's
last
it.
name, who's not registered?
Eric. Titse.
T-I-T-S-E.
Yes.
Kind of a point of clarification is
Good.
that the Cornwall has the largest solar powered Christmas tree in
United States.
Live.
Live. It has to be live.
Don't be live.
Rockefeller Center is bigger, but theirs is cut. Ours is live.
Our
Ours is
Henry
live.
said, first beat you out though.
And
But they-
Rockefeller Centers
they
is
could-
not that much bigger,
Not that much
Generally.
taller.
not that much
One
taller.
year it was shorter.
Yeah.
Is that the one down to Cornwall Bridge?
Cornwall Bridge with the LED lights. All homegrown. We should get
No,
credit.
the tree is
We should get
home.
credit for that in our Sustainable Connecticut.
We should.
Big. Number one.
Largest
It's
line,
all,
okay.
it's all.
Right.
Solar power.
Very important.
Everywhere in the US.
Still taking in CO.
I actually can do
No.
Okay,
Thank you
so
very much.
you're welcome. Thanks for coming.
That's it?
Yeah.
That's about it, other than bills and bills, more bills.